Hello and welcome to this inaugural episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your host, Dom Higuera, and I'd like to go over really quick just a general little bit about what this podcast is and what it's going to be about. So, anyone who had followed us before on me and Junior when we were doing the Horrorbox podcast knows that we were on a hiatus for a long time since the beginning. Wow, it was the beginning of this year? Maybe it wasn't. It was probably the end of last year. There were some things between us that, not anything bad, just that he had things going on. He was getting really busy. He could no longer do the podcast, and so I was trying to figure out a way to move on to keep doing the podcast, and so I just decided to spin this off onto my own, and so hopefully I'll be able to have guests on eventually in the future, or maybe like guest hosts. This will be just us looking at movies, TV shows, all media that has to do with horror. Like we're going to we're gonna open up that horror box and see what comes out from the horror box. Bear with me. It's just me right now, and I'm trying to get everything going so that this would be the first episode. Well, kind of episode 0. Get things started in the right direction. So just bear with me. A little bit about myself. I've done filmmaking for now it's been, man, since 2008. No, 2007. Yeah, about there. 2006, 2007. That's when I started doing production in high school, film production in high school at EVIT, and then from there, I went to SEC with a couple of my friends, and they're really known in Arizona for their video production. I've been working on and off. I have my own cameras, my own like video equipment setups. I've been helping out on different sets as much as I can over the past couple of years. I have a couple of different shorts. This is all going to be under a new production, so hopefully we can get everything together, and you guys can send me questions. You can send me content, and I can get some stuff out there for you. Also, get everybody involved. Yeah, I've loved horror since I was a little kid. My mom would let me go to there was a video update that was around the corner from us, and I used to go there all the time and rent a bunch of different little horror movies. And I still love horror now to this day. A couple of my favorite horror movies are Halloween, the whole series, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I love that one. Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's classic. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. And, recently there's been a whole boom in just horror in general coming back, like being more critically accepted, I guess, which is like, I don't understand. I understand why in like the 90s and late 80s, or like why it would have been considered, it's more taboo for a critic to not like it. But, I've grown up with it and I've loved it for so long. We'll get into news. We'll get into reviews. For this episode, I'm not gonna have a review. Probably go into some scary stories that have happened to me, not me personally, but to my family. I'm Mexican, so like we are very much into like that supernatural, paranormal. So, without further ado, let's get into a little bit of news, just to kind of, just to have something to talk about on this first episode. Wow. So, for anyone out there who does like killer clowns like myself, it looks like you need to go to Spirit this year, because it looks like they are having a bunch of different merchandise this year. There's going to be one that's down the street from me, and there's always spirits that pop up everywhere, but I'm so glad that I live where I live. Tempe Marketplace is around the corner. It looks like, and they're gonna put a spirit. They always every year put in a spirit, and I always miss out going. So hopefully this year I'll have time to go. And it looks like they have a pretty. It's not a large range of things, but it looks like it's a pretty good selection. It looks like there's some pins. There's a mug. Can't wait to get that. I want a mug so bad. There's a magnet, plastic cup which has the jumbo with where he's like coaxing the little girl and he has the big mallet. There's a decal which hopefully I can put on my car. Fleece blanket which can't wait to get that. And one thing you should know is my brother is deathly afraid of clowns, but more particularly killer clowns from outer space. I know that I used to watch it all the time as a kid, and so I think that's probably why he got traumatized from it. But there's also a sign. It'll go good with the collection, the little collection I have. I don't have a huge collection of Killer Clown stuff. I do have some stuff from the Halloween Horror Nights that I wasn't able to go myself. Oh my god, I wish I could have. Last year or the year before, it was right before COVID. I just wasn't able to go. I had just it's a long story, but basically my mom was able to go and she was able to get me glass, shorty figure, some pins, and then recently I bought a Killer Clowns. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a like it's the poster, but it's like on a foam material. Like somebody put it onto like a foam material. I don't know. I'll post a picture of it because I have a Halloween one as well um, from the first Halloween, the original Halloween, and then I also have the so I'll post those on on Instagram so everybody can see what they look like. But also I have pop figures. I have Spiky, Shorty, and Jumbo. I wish I could find Slim. He's hard to find and very expensive. I also have my DVD, my special or one of my special Blu-rays up there with it, and then that came with a poster, and that poster I've been wanting to put up. It's one side has the original movie poster, and then the other side has like I think it's like Jumbo, but like his like mouth is open and like it's like you're falling into it. It's pretty cool. I want to put it up, but I don't want to just put it up with like thumbtacks or like some kind of tape or something and it rips. I want to get a nice frame for it and put it up. But yeah, I mean, Spirit's always awesome for Halloween. So anyone who loves Halloween and who loves like horror and getting anything that has to do with horror, so I would suggest going in and getting it. That's what I'm gonna do. Wow. Okay, so Paramount Plus is getting. I guess this Halloween season we're getting a new um, Paranormal Activity, which that's kind of fast. Um, so it looks like new. So this is what the Viacom CBS streaming Tanya Giles said in a statement. A new Paranormal Activity from Paramount Players should bring fans an unexpected reimagining of the beloved horror franchise. We'll also be launching a documentary on the making of the Paranormal Activity, both of which will be coming to the service in time for Halloween. So this year, they said the movie has been recently described as an unexpected retooling of the franchise, reportedly continuing the tradition of taking a found footage approach. Um, wow, I did not know that they were already getting this one um, pumped out, which is crazy. I knew that they were doing something with Paranormal Activity. I didn't know that they were doing it this quick. So, I mean, props on them. I mean, Paramount Paramount Plus has gone through so much because it was CBS All Access. Then they quickly, I think, because they had acquired so much, they quickly turned that into Paramount Plus so that they could um, have that banner, and under that banner they could do the CBS, they could do Showtime, they could do all Paramount and Viacom, see all that. which that all includes everything that's like Nickelodeon, Showtime, anything that's going to be on those channels that you see on cable, or with satellite that you get through those. If you have Paramount Plus, you're getting that same thing. I mean, this isn't an ad for them, but it is a good way to, if you're like me during the spooky season, because it's um, because I love the spooky season. I love Halloween. To me, actually, the spooky season starts in September because I love getting it in early now. Because, like TikToker said, if they can start stocking, Christmas early, I can start celebrating Halloween early. So what I like to do is I love to have it varied as much as I can, where I can watch all of my different horror movies. All of the things to get me into that spooky feeling. So from Hulu, Netflix, we got my sister has Apple Plus, so I get all that. I get all the things under that, and then yeah, and hopefully, I'm gonna have time this year to watch as much as I can and get that out to you, to review, because I want you also to know what I think, but also like I want to hear what you think. So when we do these reviews, I'll let you know what movie we're going to do at the end of each episode. So then you can also, interact with me if you'd like. You can send me an email. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's still at the Horrorbox Podcast on Instagram, and you let me know what you think about these movies. I don't know if any of you out there know about this. I mean, I don't know how many of you out there who love everything horror like I do, and are up to date on what's been going on. So I guess Screen Factory, they kicked off this week by detailing their upcoming 4K Ultra release of the first 5 films in the Halloween franchise, which are set to release on October 5th. So one thing to note, though, which is kind of crazy, is that Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers, which when they started shooting had a different story going through it, which if you're like me, you know kind of the history of that. And eventually we're going to get to talk about the Halloween franchise as a whole. But Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers, this the that Ultra 4K whatever release is going to include footage from the film that was previously lost, and it's so they said that it's going to have the new long lost alternate opening sequence featuring the appearance of Dr. Death, new extra snippets of gore cut to obtain an R rating. And so I guess back in 2019, the search began for the missing footage. And a lot of people weren't sure what Scream Factory was referring to when they put that out, that they were looking for this footage. I guess that's what it is. That's what they've been looking for, and I guess they found it. And I've always wondered what that alternate universe would be, where they followed through with the Doctor Death and him putting the thorn symbol onto Michael, like, because that changes the whole aspect of the Thorn trilogy, because then Michael's not just, oh, he's had it for years, even though he's never had it until this movie for some reason. And then you would also change like the whole thing with the Man in Black, right? I don't know. So I mean, we'll get to that movie eventually, but I could have a whole conversation about it by myself. Um, but yeah, I look forward to that. Anything I love that about movies, about film, is that sometimes that's what happens. Is you leave something on the cutting room floor, and you as a filmmaker, you might be thinking like, okay, I don't need that. I can cut that, or we need to cut this down for time, or maybe that I love that sequence, but someone else didn't like it. They were saying that it slowed down the film, or this or that, or and even like producers come in and they say you need to cut this, you need to cut that because the audience didn't like this, the audience didn't like that. I didn't like that. whatever, right? And so sometimes there's sequences that are just there that may have made the movie better, or may have just made the movie interesting, or maybe made it worse, right? But you still want to see what that was. Like, what was that? Why would they cut that? Why, like, you want to know what for. So that's why I love like the like producers cuts, and I love seeing deleted footage, because sometimes it's like, why didn't they include that? That explains this. Or sometimes it's like, why didn't they include? Or I can see why they did not include that. It did not need to be in there. Or sometimes it's just like a little extra that it's just like, huh, strange. And that's about it for the news we're going to get into today, just because I didn't want this episode to be too long. And I feel like it's already going a little bit longer than I kind of wanted it to be. As I said at the beginning, my family has a lot of spooky stories. And, it's been a lot through the years. We used to live in California, and then we moved here to Arizona. But when my mom was growing up, she lived in a house, and this house was very, very haunted. There are things that would go on that would be very unexplainable. There would be noises, sounds. They'd see things. They'd experience things that were very unexplainable. And, it all stems from this one place. And not only that, but it also reverberates through to us nowadays, because there's, hearing those stories, growing up hearing those stories, but also experiencing these things for yourself. There's things that I swear that like I've seen or I heard, and they're so unexplainable. And one example was, for me, was when I moved back here to my parents' house. um, I had to sleep in the living room because my sisters hadn't moved out yet, and there wasn't a free room. So I was sleeping in the living room. But that was probably one of the creepiest times. I spent like a couple of months out there. One night, I was sleeping, and it felt like, well to begin with, you can sometimes you hear sounds, and sometimes it would sound like people talk, but not talking, but like kind of whispering a little bit. One time I swore, because we have two dogs, we have two beagles. And one of them, his little collar makes a like jingling sound. I woke up because I swore he was walking around in the living room when he wasn't. Like, I turned on all the lights. I looked all around. I could not find him. Like, it woke me up. That's how much I was like, oh man, because I knew if he was coming over, that he'd have to go. He was having to use the restroom, or go outside for the bathroom or whatever. And so I woke up and I swore he was there because I could hear it. And I got up and I looked all around, and it freaked me out so bad I had to sleep with the light on. But another time that caused me to keep the light on was I was asleep, completely asleep, and I was on I had to sleep on a futon at that point. So I was on the futon, and yes, okay, so I will admit that if you sleep to one end of it, like, but you have to put like all your weight on it, it will tip over, right? But I was in the middle of it, to where my body weight was evenly distributed across it. Something sat onto the futon, causing it to tip over with me. It literally woke me up because I was asleep, and it woke me up because I could feel something sit down and then tip the bed over, and I fell out of the bed, and it freaked me out because like I said, like, what woke me was that I felt something sit down and then pull the bed, basically not pull the bed, but like sit down enough to tip the bed over. And that freaked me out too. I was like, no, 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 oh, I'm gonna sleep with this light on. I can't. That's too much for me. Yeah, and then every once in a while you hear sounds and you'd be like, I'm just gonna ignore that. I'm just gonna try and sleep through the night. But that's pretty much that's all that's kind of happened to me here. That I have a bunch of different stories, more from like when my brother. This one time, my brother came. We were living in a mobile home. Um, Back in like the late '90s, and one day, so my brother came home and he he was taking care of my little brother. He was only a little kid back then. He came home and he told him, just watch TV, wait till like someone else gets here, because I'm gonna take a shower, because it was just them two. So he went to take the shower. It was connected to my mom's room, like the master bedroom. And so he's taking a shower and he hears the door open and close, like the front door, and then he hears the bedroom door open and close. And he's like, "Oh, okay, so somebody must have come home, right?" So he gets done and he goes out to where my brother is, but my brother's actually in my mom's room now watching TV instead of in the living room where he was. And my brother goes out and he looks and no one else is home. And he goes to my brother and he's like, who came home? And he didn't say anything. And he's like, hey, did mom come home? And he shook his head and he's like, did your dad come home? He's my half brother. And he's like, he shook his head, no. And he's like, did anyone come home? And like, he just shook his head and didn't say anything, and he just kept watching TV. And so I was like, so who opened the front door? And he never got an answer to that. So it was like, so what opened the door and what caused him to go into my parents' room, right? Like, creepy. I mean, who knows? I mean, there was a lot of creepy things. Like my nana, one time was taking care of my brother and my cousin. They were both about the same age, and they were little kids. And she was just watching them. Me and my sisters were getting out of school. My mom would take off work every day she would take her lunch and she would go and pick us up and bring us back home and then go back to work. So one day, or sometimes she would work early enough to where she would get off of work and then pick us up and then bring us back home. One day, this time when my nana was taking care of my brother and my cousin, we came home and they were just standing outside waiting for us, and we're like, "Why are you out here? Shouldn't you be inside?" And they're kind of like, my nana was like, "No, I'll tell you." And so she told my mom that while she was in the house, she was sitting, and the way that she was sitting, you could see down like a hallway, and one side was the bathroom. If you walk down, it was on your left, and then straight ahead was one room, and then on the right was another room. But she said from the bathroom, she said she could see someone looking out, like poking their head out and looking at her, and it was a figure in white and like a white hat. And I guess in certain superstitions, my nana was telling me, white figures are actually bad, like those are the bad ones. And so she didn't want to like scream or anything or freak out really bad. She just got them together and was like, okay, let's go outside and wait for your mom. So that's what she did. So that's just here in Arizona. There's so many other things like so most of my family lives in Tucson. Since we moved from California, they hear things, they see things too. I think it's just something that follows family members from wherever it started. Maybe, who knows? Or maybe it could all be explained by something, but for now, none of it's explainable. And maybe eventually, if you guys want to hear more about it, let me know. You know, you know, um, comment on anything I post, or like I said, DM me. You can also message me at horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know through there. Like, hey, I want to hear more about your stories. Or if you have any stories, it could be like personal stories. It could be a story you wrote. I'm glad to read that too. Like I said, I want to do as much horror related media on here, so it could be anything. If there's something in particular you want me to talk about, that's maybe like a novel, or maybe that's like a comic series. It doesn't just have to be movies and TV. I'm like I said, it could be like maybe you're like, hey, talk about like the history of like the Halloween Horror Nights, or something like that. I'm glad to talk about that too, if you want to. But going forward, this podcast is going to try and touch on as much of that as I can. And like I said, I'm going to try and get people on, other people, so you don't just have to hear my voice the whole time. So, like I said, at Horrorbox Podcast. That's on Instagram. Um, Hit me up, follow, like everything. We're like I said, we're in this transition period between the old podcast and this new podcast. So hopefully, I can get everything situated. And so for the full episode, I want to talk about, as a way to just kind of start getting into it and get that spooky season started. I'm gonna review Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the movie, because not only do I want to talk about that movie, but I also want to talk about the books and how that impacted everybody. And then also I wanted something that everybody could watch to kind of get into it. I know maybe there's some parents out there that won't let some kids watch it, but I feel like that's a very good movie to get kids started into like horror, like to introduce them to like that concept of like this is what a horror movie is. Because I feel like I think it's like PG-13. It's a very advanced PG-13. Like I was rewatching it. I was like, they push a lot of these bounds, a lot, but like good. I was like, the movie is really good. I'll talk about it then, and then also the book series. The the reason why I wanted to start with those was because, like any anyone starting out, you want something to get you that feeling, of like this is scary, but it can't hurt me because it's not real. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you want, you can go watch that and then listen to the review. I'll let you know what the next movie will be after that. Thank you for listening. This has been your host, Dom. And next week, we're going to open up that horror box and see what comes out from it.